Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode number 114 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we now talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, Disney Lorcana. I am one of your hosts, Dan.
I'm Jim, and this is why you should play Multiplayer Disney Lorcana.
That is right. All right, if you guys caught. Yeah, dude. Wow. If you caught last week's episode of the podcast, you would know that that's what we're talking about this week. And I've been excited. I've been excited to talk about this episode, and it's nice to get back into the groove of doing the podcast. Like it feels really good. How does it feel for you, Jim?
I'm loving it.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
It's nice to get back into a consistent groove of just sitting down and talking about card games, and now specifically about Disney Lorcana. So that's fun and exciting, to be honest with you. And to be honest, I guys, for those of you listening and watching, however you're consuming the content, thank you. Like, it's been the reception already that we've come back to do this has been great, and I appreciate it. And honestly, would we do this without you guys? Probably not. So y'all make it very, very much worth it. So thank you. And honestly, I'm really excited. The reception that we've seen thus far about people being excited for casual content. So I'm really excited to be able to provide this type of content for the Disney Lorcana community. So, all right, we got a lot to talk about, but before we get into it, number one, hey, if you are listening to the podcast, thank you. We really, really appreciate it. And if you're not listening and just watching, did you know you can listen to the podcast, guys? You can listen to this. So what you should do is you should definitely go find the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, a Disney Lorcana podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, and hit that little plus button or subscribe button, however it looks on your favorite platform, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whichever one. There's a ton out there. So yeah, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and then you can get notified when we release new episodes every single week. And if you're also watching, you know what? There's a great deal of you who watch our content and are not subscribed. So please do us a favor and do yourselves a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when we release weekly Disney Lorcana content, because we're doing it. Like, we have very consistent content, quality content. Did you know we are high quality gamers? We give you high quality content from high quality gamers. There you go. That's what it is.
We do?
I mean, I think Jim, you're high quality. You are the high quality. You're the high quality gamer.
I don't even know if I'm a good gamer anymore, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, all right. It's been okay. It's been okay. So okay, all right. Yeah. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, do all the YouTube things. It really helps us out in the algorithm. And yeah, if you could do us a solid, that way we can get this content out there to more of the Disney Lorcana community. Also, I want to start doing an intro segment thanking our patrons. If you are a patron, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support. And if you are not, did you know you can support us over on Patreon? If you head over to patreon.com/hobbies and happiness, you can find all about our Patreon program. That's right. There's currently there's 3 different tiers where you can financially support Hobbies and Happiness, and there's different perks that you get on each different tier. In fact, after we record this episode, we are doing our monthly live stream for our legendary patrons. So yes. one of the perks of being a legendary supporter is every month we do a private live stream where we just hang out with the patrons. So we're just going to get on stream and just talk and say, hey guys, how are you? And let them know what's coming up in the current month for Hobbies and Happiness for Jim and I, and just to kind of talk and hang out. We're excited for that. So this is going to be the first one that we do, and I'm kind of excited. So excited for the future with that. So again, if you are not subscribed, do us a favor, go check it out. And if you want to support us that way, we greatly appreciate appreciate any support you can give. So again, that is patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Again, that's patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Links down in the description or the notes of the podcast. All right.
You know, Dan, finally we have a worthy patron. And our stream will be legendary.
Yes.
I think that's what they've said.
Yes. Agreed. I was like trying to follow along, but yes. Sounds good to me. Correct.
I don't even know if Dan knows where this is from, man.
I do. I don't.
Oh,
you need to.
Right.
What is it from?
It's from a panda that knows kung fu.
Which one?
I believe the first one with the leopard. I think that was the guy.
Okay, it's been a while since I've seen that
Finally, a
one.
worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
Okay, yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that one.
It's all right.
Recently, so I saw. Isn't 4 the most recent one? I think 4. I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed the most recent one. I think it's 4.
Oh yeah, that was just at that was just at theaters. Yeah.
Yeah. With the shapeshifter, the chameleon.
Yeah.
That one was cool. I do the Kung Fu Panda movies are fun. They're fun.
Oh, I know. I love them.
They're fun. I love watching those with the kids. They love those movies. It's a lot of fun. Dustin Hoffman, he so he's not supposed to be super funny, but I think he's hilarious in those movies, to be honest. But yeah. And Poe's dad, the duck is he a duck or a goose? I think he's a duck, right? Goose, yeah, is a goose.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy's been around Hollywood for a long time, and he's hilarious, man. I can't remember what his name is, but he's funny. Anyway, all right. Now that we're back from that tangent, Kung Fu Panda.
Anyhow,
yeah, woo. Man, what
hashtag Disney.
Hashtag almost. Wait, because is that Fox? No, it's not Fox. No, it's DreamWorks. That's DreamWorks.
I was gonna say it's not.
yeah. I know it's not. I just couldn't remember. Yeah, it's definitely DreamWorks. So, all right. Yeah. Okay, today's topic. There's a lot to go through here today. But today, what we're talking about, and I liked how Jim did it. It's why you should play Multiplayer Disney Lorcana, and not only why you should play multiplayer, but also why you should care about it. Because I think you really, if you don't play, I mean, one, we think you should, and we're going to lay out the case why we think you should, but I genuinely believe that you should also care about it. Do you agree with, first of all, do you agree with that, Jim?
Man, this is a format for everyone.
True.
This is a format for everyone, you know?
True.
Even if you are the most competitive players in 1v1 situations, in tournaments, right. You know? You're still going to enjoy playing multiplayer.
Yep. Agreed. But specifically, do you agree that even if you don't play, and let's just say even you've played it and you maybe you don't enjoy it, do you agree that they should still care about the format in general? And what I mean by that, and again, we'll lay out the case.
What you mean,
yeah, we'll lay out the case, but
yeah. I'd say you should definitely care about it, because it's just the more avenues that people come into the game, even if you're not, very happy with the format, whatever it is, just having more people in the game is an overall plus.
Right. And yeah, like I said, we're going to lay out the case specifically for that, on the back half. So to start off, I do quickly want to address the elephant in the room. And what's the elephant in the room? I think
Madam Mim.
Madam Mim. Yeah, Madam Mim elephant. Yeah, for sure. So the elephant in the room is the commander format for Magic the Gathering. Okay. And I think we have to really start this topic by just quickly addressing it. I do think we're probably going to delve deep into this topic on maybe a further episode. But first of all, I want to address one other thing quickly. Now, to address why we talk about Magic a lot. If you've listened to our podcast for any length of time, you've noticed that we've mentioned Magic a lot. Well, why? Well, I have two things here. As human beings, our experiences color each and every one of our perspectives. And this is like a universal truth across all humans. And honestly, like if you just think about it, I genuinely believe, like, if you just sit down and think about it, you would come to that same realization. Like, yeah, you know what, that makes a whole lot of sense. Because honestly, anytime you talk to somebody, anytime Jim and I talk, right, or you're talking with a friend, family member, you bring up anecdotal stories a lot, don't you? And then you've probably said something along the lines of, well, from my experience, or I've seen this, and, you know, I actually did this last week, and here's what happened. That's totally normal. Right? So it's part of our experiences, and our experiences really do help color the way that we think about things and even evaluate stuff. And so we have a lot of experience with Magic. Jim has a little bit more experience with Magic than I do, but I still have a lot of experience with Magic. Jim also has more experience with other card games that I've never experienced, and I probably have some experience that he's never experienced as well.
Yep.
But our Magic experience in particular, that color and inform most and much of our opinions on card games, specifically like Disney Lorcana. So I did mention this last week, right? Because Magic has been around for a very, very long time. Magic the Gathering has gone through ups and downs. And I think from the standpoint of evaluating a game like Disney Lorcana and wanting that game to grow and evolve over time, we should look at other games that have been successful like Magic. Yeah, there's others as well that you can also look to and learn from. But I mean, to be honest with you, outside of Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, you probably can't learn more lessons in this space than those three games, right?
Yeah.
So beyond that, I do just want to say a few specific words about Commander before we get into this topic much further, right? So the first one, Magic Commander. Okay, so Magic/Commander, Magic and/or Commander, does not equal and should not equal what a multiplayer Disney Lorcana format must look like. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, don't immediately think Commander when somebody says multiplayer Lorcana or even singleton multiplayer. And again, this also does go back to experiences, right? Because a lot of players have had that experience in the past. And a lot of times when somebody says, hey, we want to do a multiplayer singleton format for Disney Lorcana. Oh, we don't want Commander. It's like, okay, we get that, but don't equate the two. You definitely should not. In my eyes, you know, like, don't just immediately think when somebody says multiplayer Lorcana, don't just be like, oh, well, it's Commander. Commander is a very specific format in a different game. Okay, so let's try to not do that. Right. The next thing, I've already kind of said this, but I have like my handwritten, typed out notes here.
One thing I want to throw also is yes, Commander is multiplayer, but not all multiplayer in Magic is Commander.
Perfect. That is a perfect way to say that, Jim.
Yeah. So, we can have something else other than
Correct.
Commander inside
Correct.
of Lorcana.
Correct. And these discussions have already come up before. And it's somebody says multiplayer Lorcana or just multiplayer. It's, oh, we don't want Commander. It's like, dude, okay, we get that.
Look,
but
I understand you know a little bit about Magic. Okay,
Right.
I get it. I understand you've been playing for 2 years now, and all you know is Commander. But
Right.
please.
Right. All right. This next thing I have written down here, it says Magic the Gathering and the Commander format have done many things well over the years and can provide some helpful insights and a good roadmap for Lorcana and multiplayer formats. However, I think it's ultimately up to Ravensburger and the fans to be discerning and understanding with what makes Magic and Commander specifically different and unique and why it has historically succeeded, then attempt to apply those findings and into making a popular and successful format in Lorcana. Because like Jim just said, Commander is multiplayer, but not all multiplayer formats are Commander, specifically speaking of Magic, right?
Yep.
We can have the same thing in Lorcana down the road, right? It's just learning these different lessons from these different games and then being able to apply them to Lorcana. Okay. Look, I have written down here, if you can't tell, I've thought about this extensively. like I really
There's a
thought
lot.
about the words as I'm writing these, right? Okay, if Magic and Commander haven't been or aren't your thing, cool. Just don't talk down to the people who do enjoy those games and those formats. Don't yuck somebody's yum. Do I have this written down here? I think I wrote this down somewhere else. But the discourse around Commander and then like applying it to Lorcana or having a similar style format has been so toxic over I'm the past year. Like it's just been super toxic. Somebody brings it up in Facebook or in some other group and it's just like, we don't want Commander. It's like, okay, like, all right. I think the reason, and I do personally, I believe the reason that many folks have been wanting to create a similar style format in Lorcana is because they enjoy that format in Magic and they want to see a similar type of format for Lorcana. Okay. And it's been so polarizing already. And so, yeah. So the elephant in the room is Magic and Commander specifically. So I just wanted to say those few words before we really started diving into the topic.
You know, this last thing is kind of funny to me because when I started playing card games, when I really got into it back in 2002, it was with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I knew about Magic, and there was always like this rivalry between Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh players, and then Pokemon players were just like sitting off in the corner, not really doing anything.
Not playing the game.
Not playing the game, just collecting cards. And so, it's funny when you're like, don't talk down about it, don't bash it. It's like, oh no, we all did that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's like Magic players would talk bad about Yu-Gi-Oh player games and Yu-Gi-Oh about Magic, so on and so forth.
And
so
it
just makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's all well and good. It's all well and good when it's in good fun. Yeah. And that's fine. Like, especially like, dude, if I know somebody, I will give them a hard time about it. For the rest of time, most likely, and we'll have a good time because we know we're joking. But I think part of the reason I'm really talking about it too is because of the current discourse online and how it relates to the Commander format. There have been some recent bannings in Commander and subsequent fallout from those bannings. Basically what happened was, so Commander was a fan-run format. Well, the Rules Committee, a separate third-party entity separate from Wizards, was basically in charge of the format. And when they came out with this decision, for lack of a better word, all hell broke loose.
Yeah, a lot of
especially online. And the biggest thing that happened, now personally, I didn't witness it because like I'm not in the RC Discord, and I didn't see much of it on Twitter, to be honest with you. I didn't see a lot of it. And again, so I'm already like disconnected from the community, right? But what I had heard happen, and I'm pretty sure it probably happened most in the Discord, was these rules committees members were like getting literal threats.
Yep.
Like they were getting threats, and like the whole discourse around what happened was extremely toxic. And I mean, for flat out, just unacceptable.
I heard there was doxing as well. People were actually finding out who they were and where they lived.
Yeah, and that's just so gross to me. Like dude, I've been on the internet for a long time, and I know the internet is not a kind place. It can be an unkind place, but for that kind of stuff to happen over it's a game, dude. Like, it's just unacceptable. And so, again, this is just something that's currently happening in the Magic community, and I don't want to see something like that happen in Lorcana, right? Like, I don't want to see it happening in Magic, right? It's something that I do not want to see, and I think any rational human being would wants that as well. So I think that's partially why I'm like speaking about it like that. So yeah, just be kind, people. let's just be kind. So anyway, but yeah, the whole giving people grief because they don't play the same game as you, it happens all the time, and it's a lot of times it's done in good fun. So all right, that's all I'm gonna say about Commander for now. But the long and short of it, there's other games we can learn from them. And the biggest thing is find out why they're successful, find out why it's unique, and then apply it to Lorcana. Because again, your Lorcana is unique in its own right. So, okay, all right, we've talked long enough about that. Let's get into the meat of things. Okay, all right. There's two different parts to this. It's why you should play. So why you should play Multiplayer Disney Lorcana, and then why you should care about it. All right. So the first thing, and then we kind of have something that a little special thing that Jim cooked up. So I mean, cooked up. You'll see. Well, that'll be towards the end. Okay. All right. Number one, why you should play. Number one, it's fun. It's a good time. You don't believe me? Just go watch Multiplayer Madness. Like, the amount of fun that we have. Dude, we have a lot of fun playing and producing Multiplayer Madness. Again, seriously, if you do not believe me, go watch.
It's go watch just an episode. A comedy show. That's it. We don't even play.
We've been told that it's basically just a comedy show.
Yeah.
So seriously go watch an episode of Multiplayer Madness. And if you've already seen an episode of Multiplayer Madness, you know what we're talking about. I go into those games with. Sometimes I go in with like different goals and objectives of what I want to do in that episode. And for me, it all revolves around just having fun. Now, for me, yeah, I always want to win, right? But I go in with some weird deck that I've built in like this next episode that we're planning. I literally just cooked up a deck and I'm like, okay, this actually could be fun. Let's see if I can pull this one out. So it's a ton of fun, right? I have yet to meet or play with anyone who didn't have fun playing in a multiplayer game in a social setting, right? I.e. not a competitive setting, because you can play multiplayer in competitive settings and it's just a different vibe. It's a different environment. Like super different. Jim, do you remember when we were at Gen Con and we played in a two-headed giant tournament for Magic? Do you remember that?
Oh, the draft.
Right? That was a draft. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, the draft.
That's right. Yeah. That was long. But do you remember that in like how that environment was like? Vaguely.
I remember maybe one of our matches we were able to like sit down and actually talk and hang out with the other people. Because again, they were also just there to have a good time. But it was pretty
it was just pretty much, hey, we're here to do
cutthroat.
Yeah, it wasn't cutthroat,
but it just wasn't very active in terms of socializing.
Right. We're not there to socialize. We're there to win.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a thing, right? So I really don't know what more we can say about it's fun, right? It's just, it's so much fun to sit down and play these types of formats. It flat out is. Okay. So it's fun. The next thing I have here, it is good. It is actively good. It's a good thing to socialize with players, like we were just talking about. And these types of formats provide easier opportunities to socialize and meet new Lorcana players. So this kind of goes to the accessibility argument. It is multiplayer formats, I think, are way more accessible to new players. They're way more accessible. If you were to ask a new player, and I remember when I was a new player, I remember going to our LGS and sitting down to play Magic. I remember and the deck that I built, it was a goblins deck, and the person that I sat down against from pulled out his playmat and it said champion on it. I'm like, oh, all right, it's gonna be one of these games. All right, and it was my goodness, it was Kaladesh. So this was just after Kaladesh, Jim. He had Chandra, Goblin, Chain Whirler, the
Goblin Chain Whirler. That was Dominaria.
I know. That's why I said this was after Kaladesh.
Oh, after the rotation.
Correct. This was like
I got you. I thought you were meaning like
no. It was just after. It was just after. Like rotation hadn't happened yet, so Chandra was still in it, and then I can't remember. There was some artifact that, and I can't remember what the artifact was. I do remember playing somebody who played Bomat Courier, but that was a different match. That was actually Joey who played that deck. But this one, it was really, and again, this was like my first experience playing against like other people in Magic, like ever. And come to find out, that was like a tier 1 deck. It was either actually I think it was tier 0. I think it was like the tier 0 deck at the time. Not with Bomat Courier.
Was it the Jund?
All I remember, it was Chandra, 4 mana Chandra.
Yeah.
Chain Whirler was in there.
Torch of Defiance.
Yeah. Yes. Torch of Defiance. Yeah. But anyway. But okay. Why am I bringing this up? Okay. Because I feel like I was not the typical new player. I socialize and can meet people very easily. And so competitive environments are very daunting. They're very daunting, especially for new players. Yeah. I had to work up the gumption to just go and play, because I'm like, dude, I literally have no idea how to play this game. I had to find so many YouTube videos to figure out how do I play Magic Gathering. And if you ever played, it can be complicated, dude. So I had to go through a lot of different steps for me just to try and figure out how to play. Okay, this is daunting for new players. I think a casual social setting like multiplayer formats are way, way more accessible for new players, right? And I think the other thing we can talk about too is I think a big aspect of Disney Lorcana specifically, right, is the community building and the social aspects of the game. Again, I think really because it's a Disney game, anytime you throw Disney into anything, right, I think it automatically changes the type of community that's going to be formed around that product. Again, if you've been around the block any length of time, I think you would know that. I think you would probably come to that conclusion. Okay, would you come to that conclusion, Jim? Like, if you think any community, right, and then a similar community, but it's themed around Disney, would you immediately think that there are going to be some pretty large differences between those communities? You can look at Disney Lorcana, right? And then you look at theme parks in general. Like, you've got people who just enjoy it, and then you have Disney people.
Yeah.
The Disney communities are just a different breed, I feel like.
I think it has something to do with just how long Disney's been around and how much every single generation has grown up with Disney in some capacity.
Yep.
So you're meeting, not just like this and previous generation or the previous generation of that. It's like, no, it's going even further beyond, and, older generations are just drastically different than how a lot of people are currently.
Correct.
And there's still older people that are interested in this,
and they are now interested. They would not have been interested in this game if it was not Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many people that are now playing a trading card game. The only reason is it's Disney, right? And that shows me the power of the brand. It shows me the power of the Walt Disney Company. I think that's is that what they call it? The Walt Disney Company or just Disney Company? I don't know. Whatever. You know what I'm saying, right? Okay. So I want to segue off of that to then, because we're already kind of talking about this, right? But it's let's talk about differences in competitive or social play. Okay. Because because again, right now we're talking about like socializing, right? And the accessibility. Okay. And I think you, when you're talking about that, you have to look at like what makes these communities separate, the competitively focused ones versus the socially focused ones, right? So in competitive environments, the sole goal is to win no matter the cost. That's, you're thinking about, how do I win? How do I win? That's all you're thinking about. What is my line here? What do I need to draw? And again, if you're a good competitive player, you are thinking a turn ahead. You're knowing what your opponent's playing and thinking about, okay, what you're figuring out, what percentage they have to draw this card. If you're playing against blue-red, okay, how many Tamatoas have they inked? Do they have any in discard? How many do they have left? You're going through all of those things in your head, right? That is a big thing in competitive environments, okay? And it's tiring, right? But that's competitive, okay? So let's talk about then the environment, okay? Competitively focused communities, it's so different. But when we start talking about the environment, right? When you think about the competitive environment, you've got potential high stakes. Nerves are high. Everybody at the table, for the most part, depending on some situations, they're serious, right? They're seriously thinking about what's going to happen, because some of these games can have very large ramifications. If you're trying to get into Continentals, you're trying to get a Continentals invite, you're potentially going to go to the Worlds, right? There's some things that can have massive impacts in these games, okay? It's quiet because, again, you're wanting to respect the players and their thought process. I don't know about you, Jim, but if I'm trying to think through a line, I don't want everybody around me just yelling and screaming and whooping and hollering. I don't know. Would you like that, Jim? And everybody's different. I know.
All right. If it's not my turn, I don't mind it.
If it's not your, well, true.
Yeah, if it's not my turn, I don't mind.
He's hooting and hollering for his opponent.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely pretty bad manners if every single person is around the table and they're like talking loudly, or
it's like when somebody's shooting a free throw. You go to an NBA game or whatever, shooting free throws. Get the noisemakers. You bang them together. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's competitive environments. Now let's look at the flip side of that. You've got social casual environments. Okay, and I'm trying to get into the habit of calling them like social. Okay,
real quick. I have a little story about the thing about people gathering around the table. So when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh at Grapple, like close to 10 years ago, I don't even know how long ago it was. I brought my friend Nick there for the first time, and we were playing. I was versing this one kid, I forget his name, and my friend Nick's just like on the side of me, watching me put a bunch of like back row down and setting traps and kind of just waiting for my opponent to go. And he's like on the side, like just jittery and like giggling like a schoolgirl. And he's like, "Oh my God, dude, you got this." And he's like, once he does,
he's standing behind you. He's behind you.
He's off on the side. He's off on the side of me.
Okay.
So if I'm like at the table, he's right here on the side of my opponent's.
Okay. So, but he can see what's in your hand. He knows what's happening.
He can see what's in my hand. He can see what I just played. Yeah.
Got it.
And he's over here just like being so obnoxious. And I'm even telling him, I'm like, dude, I need you to shut up. I need you to stop. I'm like, stop giving away what I'm putting down. And like, it just, I need you to not do that.
Right.
I'm like, go for a walk.
Did you literally tell him to go for a walk?
Yeah. I'm like, dude, just get away from me. I can't have you watching this right now. This is terrible.
Dude. That's
So,
hilarious. Oh, that's too funny.
so yeah, in a competitive scene, don't be that guy.
Correct. Correct. That's a good example of what not to do in a competitive environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at the flip side. We're talking about a social, like the environment of a social or casual game or environment. There's normally low or no stakes. Okay, like you're not playing for a qualifier, a seat at a qualifier, or anything like that. Nerves are typically very low. Excuse me. Again, like especially you're sitting with your buddies, you're playing with friends. You're not nervous typically. Now, if you've just met this group, okay, then there's a little change. Okay, I can understand that, right? No one is typically very serious. It's been known to happen that the entire table is laughing all together. Okay. Um, and it can get loud, sometimes very loud. What are you doing? And those are the most fun, is when everybody's yelling and screaming, what are you doing?
As you were just like going down the list, I was thinking about our 6-man game at Game Storm a while back.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
Brady, you, me, I forget the one kid and his dad would,
His dad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Forget
The kid
him.
won. I think the kid won. That was a
No,
fun game.
he didn't.
He didn't?
No.
Or did you win?
I ended up winning.
Okay.
So it came down to you, him, and me.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
And so like as Dan's talking about low or no stakes, I'm just like, I don't know about that, man. When Dan and I are playing these control battles, essentially, we got high stakes going on right now. You know, like this is serious. There ain't no messing around here.
Yeah, I had to play for the pink slip of my car, guys. And you know what? If that happens, that's on you. All right, that is on you, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's typical for social environments, right?
Yes.
You know, you can bring in your own stakes if you want, but just that's going to change. It is now a competitive environment. All right. Now I can't tell you. Okay, so in many multiplayer games or casual environments or social games, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard or even said, because I've definitely said this too, dude, I just want to do this cool thing. Jim, do not counter my thing. Let me do something cool. This will be fun. I want to do something fun. You don't do that when you go to a competitive event.
Yeah.
I recently heard somebody, and I won't say who it is, but I recently heard somebody talk on a show, basically talking about how, you know, they enjoy deck building and they want to do some fun stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Deck building is fun. Deck building is cool. But when you're talking about a competitive environment, like there is the competitive metagame. That's just 100% true. There is the competitive metagame. So I can understand wanting to play rogue decks. Jim, can you explain to everybody what a rogue deck is?
Ooh. All right. So in the meta of these card games, there's sometimes something known as a tier 0 deck, and that's the best deck in the format. Usually it's always taken up like the top 16 spots or top 8 spots of these tournaments. It's just the best of the best deck.
My bad. Ruby
Amethyst.
Yeah. Ruby Amethyst for a couple sets.
Yeah.
Probably.
You know, it's just like the best deck. And sometimes there can go formats where there's not a tier 0 deck, and then it just sometimes shows up. But then there's tier 1, like 1.5, tier 2, 2.5, pretty much 2.5 and lower will be like a rogue deck, where it's not very meta, but you're playing something that you think is good, or it is good against a lot of the really top tier decks.
Right.
It's just some cards that people aren't playing, and you really know how to play against those decks. So
Right.
this is just something that can sometimes steal those wins.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I can understand like wanting to play rogue decks, right? But regardless, competitive events, there's always a meta that forms.
Yep.
And when you're deck building and you're wanting to win these events, you're building decks to specifically counter the meta or certain matchups within the meta. And there's again looking at Magic, right? There are times when burn is a viable strategy. There are times when burn is always like is burn a rogue is burn a rogue deck, Jim, in modern specifically?
Burn is always a deck that will either be in the meta or sitting off on the side waiting for the meta to slowly shift and to not worry about burn, and then it comes right back. It's always just hidden away.
Would you say it's a rogue deck? To me, that almost fits the definition.
Yeah,
it's close. I think it's close to fitting that definition.
The thing with rogue decks is they usually don't become the meta.
Right.
Where with this, it's always burn will always be a thing unless you have ways to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when you don't have things to stop it, because, in Magic for modern specifically, the meta will start to rotate a little bit.
Right.
Okay. It's like, oh, we got to worry about burn. And then you start combating burn, and then burn kind of falls away. And then you worry about those decks that are also really good. And then you throw in more stuff against those other decks and more stuff. And then, are no longer teched against burn. So then burn just comes out of nowhere. It's like, how did this just win this tournament,
Right.
So it's just a rotation is how modern works.
It's a cycle.
It's different.
It's a cycle. But when we're talking about deck building and like building decks that you want to play because it's fun, right? Normally those decks don't do very well. Normally they don't do well in competitive environments, right? Especially when the card pool is just massive. Because again, there's these metas that form. Normally, if you're going to go to these events and you're wanting to build something different, it's you're building to specifically counter a certain strategy or strategies that are going to be prevalent at the tournament. Okay. So this leads me into talking about this next point, which is specifically in multiplayer formats, you have more opportunities to play decks that are off meta and have a good chance at potentially winning. So you can build decks that are fun and do fun, crazy things, and even on top of that, potentially win. And again, everybody wants to win. I've never met somebody, and again, we've had this discussion in the Lorcana community over the past year of, man, I want to play this deck at locals, and everybody there is just playing these meta decks, and I get slaughtered all the time. How many times have you heard that, Jim? How many times have you heard that within the past year?
Happens quite a lot.
All the time.
We have people who come onto the multiplayer madness and they're like, man, I never would have thought that card was great. Or it was, man, I've really been wanting to do something with these colors, but it doesn't really work great in competitive, like pack tactics.
1v1s.
It's so much better when you have 3 opponents rather than just one opponent.
Correct. Correct.
So there are these cards out there that are just super cool that you want to play with, and in competitive, they're just not.
Correct.
They're just not.
And I have 6 here that I want to highlight quickly, but before we do that, I've got one other thing to point out as well. Not only do you have these opportunities to play these decks and cards that you don't get to play with very often, but like I was saying, you have a chance to potentially win the game because specifically of how Lorcana works, and then apply to a multiplayer format, right? Because again, it's a race. Okay. I can't tell you how many games, because this has happened a lot. Jim can back me up on this, but there's been many of our multiplayer madness episodes when they've ended, every single player was 1 turn away from winning. Yep. There have been so many times where it was, all right, you just won. If it got to me, I was gonna win. I was gonna win. I was gonna win. I mean, we've had many episodes, and we always know everybody was getting close to winning. And Jim, I want to get your quick take on like how has that felt for you thus far? Because like I mentioned earlier, this is such a different feeling when we're talking about a multiplayer card game where it's not last man standing, it's first to finish. How has this environment felt for you, who's someone who's played these card games for a long time? How has this environment felt for somebody like yourself thus far?
Man, it's so drastically different. And Dan, you know how I play Magic Commander or Magic multiplayer formats.
Yeah,
it's a complete change
because you can't play like
style.
that. Because you can't play like that.
It's a complete 180. All right, maybe it's not 180, but
you almost said 360, and you were like, and then I'd be going the same
direction. No, I wasn't going to say 360 now. But it's just like a drastic change for me. But aside from that, it is fun to see and change up how it is I play.
Yeah.
And see how other people also play. But it's also nerve-wracking when you're in the game itself, because when you're that close and it's like, man, I hope my opponents aren't able to stop me, or
I hope my opponents don't have spot removal.
If I can just get to my turn, I'm gonna win, but I have to make sure this other person doesn't win. And now we're playing the politics of, Dan, hey, can we set something up to take care of this person? It's
politics. Politics is a necessary evil. It's
relaxing, but it's also so stressful.
Yeah. Like, look, I need you to team up with me so we can stop this person from winning, so then it can get back to somebody else's turn. Okay, because playing political games in like Commander, for instance, it's so different because it's like, hey, I want to do something cool, and can we just help each other out? In Lorcana, it's like, dude, we have to work together to stop our common enemy at the time being. And then the next turn cycle, okay, you're the common enemy because you're gonna win. It's so vastly different, right?
Yep.
Okay, so speaking of playing with cards and off meta decks that really do not see much play, or they don't shine in core constructed formats, or just other constructed competitive formats, or the meta game. Some of these have been shown to and can really shine in multiplayer formats. I've just got 6 cards. I just want to list them off, and then we can just talk about them real quick. You've got Ariel, Who's It Collector, one of my personal favorites. You've got Ursula, Power Hungry, Ursula's Trickery, Grand Pobby. I think it's Grand Pobby, wisest of them all. I can't remember. I'd have to double check that. Milo Thatch, King of Atlantis, and Pack Tactics. Pack Tactics, probably one of my favorites. You've played some decks with Pack Tactics now, haven't you?
Yeah. I have.
How much lore did you gain in one turn off of that card? You gained a ton, didn't you?
Sure, but I want to say 5. I want to say 5 in a single turn.
Yeah.
Which honestly is pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's one card for 5 lore. I will trade one card for 5 lore, and pretty much any day of the week, if you ask me. That's pretty good. And the other card, like this Milo, is so stinking annoying. Wow. Oh, there's so many, and we'll talk about how annoying Emerald is in specifically multiplayer formats. It's so stinking annoying. But Milo Thatch is good. Milo's just slow. It just slows the game down. It can slow the game down, and that's a lot of what Emerald can do, is just slow the game down in multiplayer formats. Which sometimes that is 100% needed and necessary in multiplayer formats. But probably Ariel, Who's a Collector, is by far that is my combo card. I love that so much. And Ursula's Trickery. Ursula's Trickery probably. I would have, if you would have asked me probably a month ago, I probably would have told you Ursula's Trickery is probably like the best card in all of multiplayer, just purely based off of the cost and what you can get with it. But honestly, I mean, Diablo is obviously phenomenal card. Like Diablo is just a good card wherever. That card is way too good. But dude, Ursula's Trickery, Jim's played that card quite a bit already.
Yeah, dude, that card's real good. That's real good.
Yeah. So if you don't know what Ursula's Trickery does, it's an uninkable one costed action that set. I'm doing this all from memory, dude. I don't have it in front of me, but it is you pay 1 and basically says each opponent chooses and discards a card. For each opponent who doesn't, you draw a card.
Yep.
So that is 1 ink for potentially 3 cards.
Yep.
1 ink for 3 cards. Right. The next closest card that does that is Friends on the Other Side, but that's 3 ink for 2 cards. Now that could turn into 0 ink for 2 cards, which is still, I mean, that's really good. I mean, I think Friends on the Other Side is like the standard. That's got to be like the gold standard for cost to cards. What you're paying and what you're getting. So you're up 1 card in that instance. But dude, Ursula's Trickery. And the fun thing about that card is you're introducing questions to the table. All right, you want to discard? You want me to draw? You want me to discard? Do you want to discard or not? It's just because they have to answer 2 questions. Do I want all these cards in my hand? And then weigh that between do I want you to draw a card? And the way to do it too, and in a recent episode, okay. So in the turn cycle, I just did my turn, and the next player to take their turn played Ursula's Trickery. I didn't say anything. Because the conversation at the table immediately went, okay, guys, you do not discard. And I'm like, I'm keeping quiet because I don't want to discard. And I already made the decision in my head. I'm not going to discard. Okay. But I let the other 2 start the discussion. Okay. And then what you do is you resolve it in player order. I don't even know if that's right technically, or if you just all do it
it's probably correct.
And that's what I went with. I'm like, it's probably correct to do it that way. So we're just going to go with it.
Yeah.
So I let Jim, because Jim was the next person. So Jim decided, and I'm like, okay, he's not going to discard, or no, he's going to discard.
I did discard.
Yeah, you discarded. And I'm like, okay. And then the next person decided to not discard. I'm like, all right, great. Since they already decided to not do that, I now kind of basically have permission that it's okay for me. Even though I already made the decision in my head that I wasn't going to discard. So it's little moments like that can come up from these cards. So that's one of the reasons why, like, Ursula's Trickery is it's a fun card. It's a fun card. You're only discarding 1 card, and it's a choice. And anytime there's a choice, it can turn into a fun little moment for the table. Okay. So those are some cards. The next thing I want to touch on briefly, and this is really where I lie to you, right? It's the deck building philosophy. And we've been talking about this. The deck building philosophy in social and multiplayer formats is vastly different from competitive formats. Like we just talked about, competitive formats, you want to build something that wins constantly, or wins consistently, or wins consistently against certain matchups. And then when you're going to a tournament, you're evaluating, okay, what are these matchups going to be and what am I going to build? That's how you're building, okay? Social format equals, hey, I have a fun puppy deck that I want to do some cool stuff with, right? Maybe you're Liam and you want to build a fun puppy deck, right? Those are the different deck building philosophies, right? So what do you want to do? You want to do some research and figure out what you have to build or play to counter the meta, or you just want to do something fun. Those are the different things. Okay. Okay, we're gonna come. No, let's actually talk about this really quickly. We'll talk about this real quick before we talk about why you should care about multiplayer formats. So. So this is fun. So Jim and I were discussing the episode, right? And so I sent Jim, I'm like, hey, do you have some thoughts? Like, start adding any of your thoughts. And then Jim sends me this picture, And I start reading it, and I'm like, bro, did you just type this into like an AI generator, and then it just output these results to you? And he was like, yes. Because I start reading it, and I'm like, this literally sounds like just an AI generated thing, and it's fun. So, all right, we're gonna. I want to read these.
They're good.
Really,
They're good.
they're good, and some of them we've already talked about.
Yeah.
But the first thing, so playing multiplayer games benefits. Number one, social connection, community. Okay, we've already talked about that. Competition and challenge. Okay. I mean, again, we did talk about, differences between competitive and social. And so, yeah, that can play into it. Cooperative play and teamwork. It says many multiplayer games feature cooperative modes where players work together to achieve a common goal. This encourages teamwork, communication, and problem solving, leading to a sense of camaraderie and shared success. Which, yeah, that can definitely play into it for sure. Improved skills and learning. Okay, sure. Variety and unpredictability. That's a good one, because that's true. And this so it says here under this heading, multiplayer games often feature dynamic environments and unpredictable opponents. I know an unpredictable opponent. Keeping gameplay fresh and exciting, the variety can prevent players from getting bored with repetitive single-player experiences. Or the competitive meta, which you're always going up against Emerald Steel or Ruby Amethyst or whatever, these decks that you always know you're going to play against. Sure, 100%. Accessibility and convenience. We already talked about that. Emotional investment and investment in others. This is a good one. Multiplayer games can evoke strong emotions, such as excitement, frustration, and joy, as players invest in their characters, teams, and relationships. This emotional investment can lead to a deeper sense of engagement and satisfaction. Okay, I like that. And then the last one, fun and entertainment. Did we already not talk about that, y'all? Ultimately, multiplayer games offer a unique form of entertainment, providing a dynamic and engaging experience that can be enjoyed with friends and like-minded individuals. The social aspect and competitive nature of multiplayer games can create a sense of excitement and enjoyment that is hard to replicate in single-player experiences. True. Thanks. What do we?
Thanks, AI Answers.
Thanks, AI Answers. What was it in Terminator? What is it? Oh, thanks, Skynet.
Oh yeah, Skynet.
That's what I would say. Those are good. So when Jim sent that to me, I'm like, there's no way you came up with this yourself. Which is true. All right. Okay. So I think that whole thing of why you should play is super important. And I genuinely believe, I really think it does kind of outweigh why you should care. Because I genuinely think that there's going to be more people who want to play and have more fun with these types of formats than they do with 1v1 competitive formats, to be honest with you. And again, just look at Commander. Now, Commander is successful in its own unique ways, and you can learn a lot. But we talked about this stat in a show last week. We were on the Lumineers Let's Talk Lorcana. Jim, you want to go through that stat real quickly? I know we've talked about it on our podcast before, but Jim can talk about this stat.
Yeah, what the tournaments?
Yes.
Yeah. So a while ago, Magic put out that 85% of their player base, people who have bought Magic over the counter, whatever, have not been to a local game store tournament or greater. So they haven't been to, RCQ, Pro Tour, locals, any of those things. 85% of their player base hasn't been to a tournament.
Yeah, that's a lot. So again,
that's kind of a lot of people. Over 30 years.
That is a lot. So again, like applying that to Lorcana, that is only 15% of the entire player base have gone to their LGS to play in their local Lorcana leagues. And so
and honestly, I think it's probably a lower number than 15% specifically for
you're
Lorcana.
talking about currently?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's well, I would think it's probably higher currently just because it's still so new. Once it
Mm,
becomes more established, then I think that number drops considerably. That's why
okay.
I think, cuz it's still we're still a year. We're still a year. So that's why
Mm,
I think anything you see online, it's really all really hyper focused on competitive formats and whatnot. And I don't think yet there's a deep knowledge base in the general public of what Lorcana actually even is, even in the Disney fan base. Okay.
mm.
But I think give it another year or two, then that number just drops considerably. That's what I personally think. Um, so, um, okay. So like that's a stat. Okay. And I think it's a stat that I'll be interested to know if we can actually see and
Yeah, that'd
replicate
be
at some
great.
point in Lorcana. Like I'll be interested to see if we can see a stat like that. Okay. But again, I do really believe that there's more things here of why you should play, okay, than why you should care. But that being said, let's really talk about why you should care about these formats. And there's really only there I think these reasons that we're going to discuss very quickly, it really kind of just devolves down to one thing, okay? But the first thing that I have written down, it says this: the player base in Disney Lorcana is diverse and different. And what do I mean by that? I mean, not everyone wants the same thing. Okay. We just talked about there's players who they build a puppy deck or they build something that's fun and they want to go play it and they want to win.
Some people
Everybody
want a
builds a deck.
commander format.
Everybody wants to win. I've never sat down across the table from somebody who says, "Hi, I built this deck. I want to lose today." Like, no, like that's not a thing that happens. Okay. So when you're in a competitive environment, everyone who wants to win, what are they going to do? They're going to bring the best deck that they can that gives them the best chance at winning most of the time, especially when there's prizes that are involved. And when
Sure.
those prizes are good, if it's a golden Mickey, yeah, people want that golden Mickey, dude. They're going to
When
bring a deck that they feel comfortable with, but that they think gives them their best chance at winning, right?
yeah, when
Make
money
the
involves, it changes things.
And I would even argue not just money, just something that is desirable for all players, right? And the reason I'm only bringing that in is specifically in Lorcana. Yeah, money's involved, just not directly. It's like indirectly. But
Yeah.
the reason I'm really bringing it up is like Ravensburger has specifically said, and I remember when we were talking about this on the podcast before, and I was wrong, but I was talking about if there's no cash, people aren't going to go to these events. Yeah, dude, I was so off on that because these are not cash events for Lorcana. Like the competitive events, they're not playing for cash
Yeah.
directly. They are playing for cards, right? Like
Which have
the
value,
most
but
correct, and that's why I
yeah,
say
it's different.
indirectly.
Yeah.
That's why I say indirectly, right? Because again, we don't know if these people sell those or if they just hang on to them for whatever
Yep.
reason, right? So yeah, I was kind of off on that because I did specifically say cash, but anyway, but yeah. So when it comes to this game, there are different kinds of players that want to do different kinds of things. And the thing that is universal among everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win, right? But the way they go about winning, or the way that they go about wanting to try and win, can be different, right? And so I think there needs to be different formats for those different types of players. There's always going to be the competitive events. There's always going to be that competitive base who they just want to build the best deck and then show everybody else that they are the best, right? And those are great. Those are 100% needed and necessary formats, okay? But as the game grows, as the card pool grows, as the player base grows, and that's the thing I'm going to focus on here in a minute, the growing player base, so should the formats, okay? formats are going to grow over time. Right now, there's only one format. Okay, two formats officially. You have Core Constructed and Pack Rush. Those are literally the only two official formats. That's it. Okay, so basically, I think what this really just does come down to is more formats for a game means more ways to play the game. And like that does 100% I think go to accessibility for the game like we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
It's way more accessible for a new player to sit down and play in a multiplayer format or a social format than it is for them to come to a competitive event, okay? So, more formats is a good thing for the consumer or the player as it gives you more avenues to explore within the game itself. Okay. Yep. You may enjoy one format way more than another format. There might be players who, once they experience a multiplayer format, or we have maybe sometime down the road, we get a officially recognized singleton format for Lorcana that just really explodes the game. And that is your primary avenue or vehicle for how you play the game, right? You never know until you sit down and play it. Like, again, thinking about Magic, right? I enjoyed Modern when I played it. I played Amulet Titan. Dude, I love that deck. That was a ton of fun. Jim played, what'd you play? You played Tron. You still have that deck, or did you get rid of it?
I never finished Tron.
Oh, you never finished Tron? Okay.
No.
That's right, because we had proxied. We proxied a lot of that when we were testing that. That's right.
It was almost done.
It was almost done. Yeah. So again, ultimately, like, more formats for a game is just, it's good for everybody, and it's very good for the player base. Okay. Yeah. So speaking of more formats and it being good for the health of the game as a whole, more formats means more ways to grow the game. Right now, again, and we've heard this within the last year, people going to their local game store and then sitting down at League and then being like, dude, I have a starter deck, or I have this deck that I played, and like it's a puppy deck or it's a broom deck or whatever, and I just get thrashed every time. It's not fun. I agree. It's not fun to lose all the time, which is why there should be a format for you to play in that's not so competitively focused. I am 100% in agreement, which is why there needs to be different formats for different players. Who'd have thunk it? I mean, am I crazy here, Jim?
Honestly, I didn't know that there were different play styles for different people. I honestly had no idea.
Jim had no stinking idea. And there's another thing I want to say too. Like, another thing that we've also seen too, like we've already seen this in the past year, that there's some players that just don't enjoy constructed formats. They may enjoy limited or sealed formats. Currently, as it stands, there is no official sealed or limited formats. There aren't any official sealed limited formats, right? One of the things, like if you go to Magic's website, there's a page that shows different formats, different ways to play the game. Nothing like that exists for Lorcana yet. And again, I know
when we were at Gen Con last year with the starter deck, the starter deck challenge, was that not an official thing?
So it was an event. That was an event because the game just launched. When we were at Gen Con,
starter deck plus the one pack you got.
Correct.
Make
Correct. What I'm specifically speaking about is if you go to the Disney Lorcana website, there's nothing. There is no page that shows you the different types of formats. And again, at this stage in the game, I'm not saying it should exist. I'm not saying it's needed. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying right now there's only really, if you want to get involved and dive into the game and really play, there's only really one official way to play the game, and that's Core Constructed. There's Pack Rush, yes, but Pack Rush is very different. But Pack Rush is an official format recognized by Ravensburger. outside of core constructed, there's nothing. There's no sealed, there's no limited. Now you can still do those if you want. Again, same thing like with multiplayer, right? But there is no official, there's no other official formats outside of core constructed. And that is something that I want to see grow and evolve over time. I believe it will. I genuinely believe that it will over time. It's going to take time for sure. But again, my whole point is there needs to be more avenues to play the game. There have been people and player bases who will leave a game. If the format they enjoy does not get support officially or even unofficially, they will leave your game. And we have seen it even in this past year. So in conclusion, basically, more formats and more ways to play a game that are actually and actively acknowledged by Ravensburger Disney is a boon to the game itself. So more formats as we grow over time is necessary for the health of Disney Lorcana, especially applying to multiplayer formats. I have never known this not to be true. Jim, have you ever known this not to be true in any card game?
I honestly can't really think of it.
Yep.
I don't believe so.
That's because it's not true. Like that's the thing. Like it's never not true. You look at the big three. How many different ways are there to play Magic? And then go to Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. There's a lot. There's a lot of different ways. I mean, Jim, what is your favorite way to play Yu-Gi-Oh? Is it standard? Is it the standard format? Whatever the standard format is.
It's not advanced format. Nope. It's not traditional.
Is gonna say, is advanced format the standard format?
Yeah.
Okay.
Essentially,
because every game
pays attention to the ban list. Yep. Traditional, there is no banned cards, but there are restricted cards.
Yep. What's your favorite way to play, Jim?
It's definitely the Time Wizard format, where you can play GOAT format like it was back in 2005, or Edison format like it was back in 2010, I believe, or 2011, one of the two.
Yep.
It was a great time.
And I have a Pokemon deck. I think it's a legacy. Is my deck a legacy deck? I think it's legacy for Pokemon.
I think so. The eggs?
The eggs, yes. The Weavile eggs. I love that deck. It's so cool. But yeah, that is a legacy deck. That's how I like to play Pokemon. And Pokemon's fun. But and then again, we just talked about Magic, how there's a ton of different formats for Magic. So so in short, if you want to see Disney Lorcana be successful, in order for Lorcana to be successful, in order for Disney Lorcana to be successful, it needs to grow and evolve over time. And the card pool is going to grow and evolve over time. And the formats need to grow and evolve with the game. And that is really why you should care about multiplayer formats, because multiplayer formats really are a part of the different types of formats for the game. So before we start closing, again, two big things, right? Why you should play Lorcana, why you should play Multiplayer Disney Lorcana. I think the biggest thing is it's just fun. You know, you're going to have such different experience playing a Multiplayer Disney Lorcana than you have ever had playing in a 1v1 competitive format. It's just so different, and it is so much fun. And you definitely, if you've never tried it, you definitely need to try it out. If you haven't tried it out, at least watch Multiplayer Madness. Hashtag ad for Multiplayer Madness, yeah. But if you watch this series, like we can show you
great.
like the kinds of fun you can have in the game, okay? And then again, if you are invested in the game and you want to see the game succeed, you really should care about multiplayer formats, and you should want to see that succeed, because again, it is going to benefit the game as a whole. Even if you're not playing the game, it will benefit the game as a whole. Because again, if you want it to succeed, it's going to need to be successful financially. And again, you want to get more players in to play the game. So those are big things. Jim, do you have any final closing thoughts or anything that you wanted to mention?
Well, I mean, I guess there's another thing that we should add as to why, this is a good thing and bring more people in.
Yes.
Like, this is gambling, right? Like, opening up packs is gambling, and that feels good.
True.
Guys,
So-
for real though, gambling is a serious problem. Okay, if you have an addiction, please
Yes.
get some help.
Yes. Yes.
Buy
But
singles.
I have
That's how
said
you
buy
stop
singles.
that.
I have said buy singles. I can't tell you how many times. And dude, like there have been so many times when I've been at our LGS at Amazing Fantasy. And I've had this conversation with people and they're like, yeah, I've never pulled this card or whatever. I'm like, just buy it.
I'm like, dude, they have it in the case right there.
Literally, it's right the case
there.
right there.
I just saw you drop $40 on packs. It's right there for $15.
Or, dude, it's not. It's $5. The card's $5. You're gonna spend more on a pack. I don't get it, man.
Oh man.
And
wow.
like they will try to argue with me, like, no, it's not the same. It's so much better when you pull it. I'm like, I
You're
know,
right.
but you have a
You're
100.
right. You have a gambling problem. That's
You
why
have a
100%
chance of getting that card if you just buy it right there. So...
oh man. Although I'm not gonna lie, it does feel great when you're like cracking packs.
I know,
and you come across that card.
It does.
But guys, if you're trying to get a specific card, just buy it. Please
buy the card.
buy the card.
Just buy it, okay? Do yourself a favor and buy it. Buy the singles. Card. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Well. With that being said, I want to kick it over to you, the listener. What do you think? What are your reasons of what would you tell a potential player of why they should play Multiplayer Disney Lorcana? What have been your experiences thus far playing the game in multiplayer, and what would you tell somebody to get them into these types of formats? And then also, why do you think other players should care about multiplayer formats, even if it's not their jam? What would you tell somebody of why they should care about these formats? Let us know. We'd be interested to know what you all think. Leave us a comment down below. Excuse me. Or send us an email with your thoughts. We'd be interested to know what you all think. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. This is what happens when I drink Diet Coke. We just went
#sponsored.
What's today? Is today Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I went to the doctor yesterday with my wife. We both had our well checks, and I was talking to her today. I'm like, I should probably cut down on the Diet Coke and just drink water. I haven't done that yet. If you can see, if you're listening to this, I am holding a Diet Coke up, and I've gone through, I can't tell you how many today, and I probably am embarrassed.
You don't have to reveal that information.
But yeah, that is information that I do not need to reveal, so I will not reveal it. So anywho, but yeah, if you guys, if you have any thoughts, be sure to leave us a comment down below, or if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, shoot us an email. We'd be interested to know what you think. So again, I'm gonna wrap this up by again saying, if you're listening, thank you for listening, and don't forget, be sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. That way you can get notified when we release more episodes every single week. And then if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. We really appreciate it. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification so you can be notified when we release more episodes of the podcast in the future. Got some more great topics. I'm not totally sure what we're going to touch on just yet for next week, but we are coming up on the next set, Azurite Sea. Really interested. There's going to be some new strategies that we can start building around for multiplayer formats. I'm excited to see, but honestly, I'm really excited to be able to do those set reviews. That's going to be probably in about a month and a half, maybe. I'm not sure when we're going to get the full set. I'd have to look at the calendar. I can't remember. But yeah, we're going to be doing that. I'm excited to get back to that as well. But Anywho, Jim, thank you for joining me today. This is always a lot of fun. Really, I honestly forgot how much fun it was to do this podcast with you, dude. This is a lot of fun. So, I'm still figuring out. I have to standardize the intro and the outro. That way, I can just kind of run through these, and I'm just talking right now. So, with that being said, thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with us today and listening to the podcast. Jim, thanks a lot. And we will see y'all real soon.